Roosevelt was at the Minnesota State Fair, and he actually gave a speech in which he used this very famous phrase that caught on. And I like to think that this is one of those phrases that can keep being reinterpreted over time. So for example, speak softly and carry a big stick today would probably mean in the internet area something like, don't feed the online trolls and make sure your antivirus is up to date. And with that, I will now call on our duty masters and make sure that we have a person for every role. We have quite a few empty roles today. We do have 3 speakers, but currently we only have 1 evaluator, which is Tao. Do we have anyone else who would like to be an evaluator?
I can evaluate, Georgie.
Okay, so Hannah, you'll be second one. Anybody else interested in being an evaluator? If not, I can be the evaluator. Anyone else want to be an evaluator?
How many evaluators do you need?
Pardon me?
Do you need an evaluator?
We are trying to fill roles, but you're also a speaker, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So I could also be an evaluator as well if no one else wants to do the role. Anybody else interested in volunteering to be an evaluator?
So I'll be evaluating Jose, correct? So
yes. Well, like I said, we'll figure that. But yes, I'll be evaluator, and I guess I'll Hey Tao, would you mind being general evaluator?
Sure. Yeah, I can be, but I'm already okay. Yeah, I can do both. Yeah.
You're an evaluator, yeah. So I'm just going to put you in as general evaluator. Otherwise, I could do it, but then I'd be evaluating the meeting I was Toastmaster of, and I'd had nothing but high praise for the Toastmaster. All right, and we do have, as I said, 3 speakers. We have all of our evaluators at the moment. We do have a few roles that need to be filled. We have Hannah, you're going to be the ballot counter. So why don't you start off by saying anything that you would like done with respect to ballots?
I'll be sending the Google Drive link at the end of the meeting. So towards the end, please submit your votes. Thank you.
Thank you. We also need, we have a timer, I believe. Is that correct, Wan Ming?
Yes, I'm timer. I'm going to time everyone's speeches. I assume they're going to be 5 to 7 minutes based on the agenda, and then I'll report the time at the end of the meeting. It's 5 minutes. The green light will come on at 6 minutes, yellow, and 7. The red light of 30 seconds.
Okay. I do believe that
2 minutes.
that Jose has and you, well, I mean, both confirmed that your speeches were 5 to 7 minutes long. Gautam, is how long is your speech going to be?
5 to 7.
Gautam, is that you? Gautam?
It's going to be 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay, great. All right, just want to double check. All right, so going back to our agenda, we could also use a counter. Does anybody want to be counter today? Seems to be a little light on people today. Harun, would you be interested in being counter?
Okay, yeah, I can be counter. But somebody will have to pick up for me for.
Oh, right. Sorry, you would be a bad choice for that. Sorry about that. Let's see. Is there anyone else that might want to be an counter today?
I'll do it, Georgie.
You sure? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. Do we have anyone interested in being a grammarian? Okay. I guess I can be grammarian. Best I can. All right. And a joke. Does anybody have a joke that they might want to do at the end of the meeting?
Joke.
Well, maybe we'll figure that out later. And last but not least, does anybody have an idea for a word for the day?
I'll be word master.
Okay, Jose? Okay, all right, so did I miss it? Okay, Hannah, I forgot to ask you, what are the duties of the odd counter?
I will be counting as, and other kind of filler words, also but, or other kind of filler words that you may use, and reporting towards the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, great. And I will be grammarian, which means that I'll be listening for very good uses of the English language, and maybe some areas in which we need to improve. And I will provide a report at the end of the meeting. Jose, do you have a word that you have selected yet?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Toastmaster. The word for today is elucidate. It's a verb. It's to throw light upon a subject or making it clear. Could you kindly elucidate us on how this is going to be done? That's a good sample. You hear it once in a while during speeches, so I'd like to put that in. And again, the word is elucidate. It will be in chat. I'll be taking note of everybody who uses the word and make a report at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And last role that's technically not filled is joke master. Would anybody like to tell a joke at the end of the meeting?
I'll do it.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Let's see. All right. That is all the roles for today. All right. And with that, we now turn to our prepared speeches, which is one of the big things we're working on around here. And I would like to start by introducing our first speaker, who is Gautam. So take it away, Gautam.
I'll share my screen. Okay, is my screen is visible? Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Today, I would like to share my thoughts about the articles that I read about Warren Edward Buffett. I would like to challenge myself to give a speech on a non-technical topic with the visual cues and no bullet points. So I prepared this speech with the help of some of the articles that I read about recently. Warren Buffett turned 90 in last Sunday. Why do we celebrate our birthdays? Birthdays are a time to reflect on our beginning and how far we have come, and it is a time to take a look back and see where are we on our mission on the earth. Warren Buffett is one of the most renowned person in the world, turned 90 on last Sunday, and Buffett, the world richest person, in the chief executive officer of an investment firm. He bought his first stock in 1941 at the age of 11. He filed his first income tax when he was at 13. He bought a stake on 40-acre farm in Omaha, Nebraska, by the time he finished his high school. Years ago, he gave a lecture at Columbia University. What he basically thought was a person with high moral principles and integrity can make a lot of money off the market by being wise and smart and moral. He transformed many people's life personally more than anyone else in terms of modeling good behavior and having fun. He made them a better person and made everyone think their own philanthropy in terms of helping those who on fault of their own born on the wrong side of the track. When people show up at Berkshire meeting to learn how to become rich and make a lot of money with the help of trading in stocks, but what they would get is a dosage of what they call worldly wisdom about developing good habits and importance of integrity becoming a learning machine and how to be a good person and all other things that they learn from their investors meeting. Buffett often talks about the importance of giving to your family and friends and the people we love. When he was asked about how does he measure his success, he replied, greatest measure of success at the end of our life comes down to one word called love. On the other hand, he also eats like a first grader. He eats exactly what he likes to eat. He once said that if somebody offered him a deal when he was at 20 and said he will live longer, instead of living to 88, he would live to 89. And he just replied, just take off my last year and it's not going to be worth that much. On a speech, he was saying, we have exactly one body and mind. He related our body and mind to the car. He is very purposeful and self-aware, and he was very thoughtful, and he has a very great deal about longevity, but not in an obsessive and cryonics way. If we get a car, and it would be only the car that we would get in our entire life, we will take care of like anything. We read owner's manual, we fix any issue at the very moment. Similarly, we have only one body and one mind. We cannot start taking care of that at the age of 50. By the time it would rust it out, and if we cannot handle it, it's really difficult. So we should really make sure that we got one body and one mind to get through the life with and to do most with it. By practicing the pieces of wisdom that was elucidated by Buffett, I'm sure he would live longer, healthier, happier. Happy birthday, Buffett. Over to Toastmasters.
Great. Thank you very much, Gautam. If everyone could give him some feedback. Right, maybe just a minute to few more seconds to pull everything to finish up your feedback to Gautam. Okay. right. Right. Our next speaker is Jose, who will be giving a 5 to 7 minute speech on buyer's remorse, and he will be evaluated by Hannah. So please go ahead and give a warm welcome to Jose.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. This will be part 4 of my series on technical sales, which could apply to you also. I hope you pick up a few pointers if you get into a selling situation. A quick overview of what I did before. I had sales strategies was my first presentation. The second one was how to manage sales by sales funnels. The third one was buyer, the different types of buyers. And now I'm going to cover buyer response, which is a good ending in the series because this will address you making sure that you actually had a win when you sold your product. So let's proceed. Let's see now. Okay, the reference I had is the same, and I would like to add that it is in a few items the same, partially the same, but I will elucidate you on what I think is the most key points in the whole Miller-Hyman seminar, and that's what I'm going to cover. And let's start with the key steps. The key steps in sales. There's actually 7. There's more to it, but I I made it simpler. I only put 4 in. Basically, you start out in the sales process. You start out with your approach. You approach the right person. You know the customer's product line. You know the customer's operation in a shallow way. You know the organizational chart, and that was my presentation before, is knowing your customer. After that, you do your presentation. A quick overview, a rundown of the presentation. You normally get a presentation that introduces your company, and then a presentation that you present which of your product lines will apply for that company, and then you try to handle objections. And that's, for me, in my experience, handling objections is the hardest one, because those are the ones that is the key in the sales process, is actually handling what the person is going to think of your product. And how do I learn how to handle objections? I have to do a lot of research to do that. I actually do role playing. We actually have sales role playing scenarios for handling objections, because that is the tough part, and I think that's the key point. And a lot of the challenges in my experience has been product performance. As you can see in the slide, it shows yield versus actuations. You know how your product performs. I sell high performance switches, so a lot of the yield variables are very critical. And then you close and you follow up. That is also a tough part, because you have to deliver what you promised, and that's what you try to do. And how do you do that? Constant communication. So handling objections is a lot of research. Closing and follow-up is a lot of follow-up, a lot of communication. And that's the key, I think, in sales. And let's move on. Now, once you actually have a closure, you actually sold your product. Well, you have to assess the situation that you put yourself into. It has to be a win-win. I defined win-win in a simple profit and quality measure. If you look at it, if you put it that way, it's very simple. For example, in the first line, it says win-lose. Basically, you made a lot of money, but the quality of your product, as perceived by the customer, is low. So you don't want that, right? So you want to be a win-win. Basically, you made a lot of money, and you gave a lot of quality. And how do you achieve that? In summary, what has to happen is the product that you could design has to be really, really cheap, not cheap, but inexpensive in terms of manufacturing. But at the same time, it's designed very, very well with high quality material so that you do give out that quality. And that's the key. And that requires a merging of the technologies between your company and what the customer needs and the customer processes. And after you actually had a win-win, it doesn't end. And this is also very key. There's also another kind of win that you have to achieve, which is a win result winning, wherein you actually got the result that you want, that you perceived, but you have to know if it actually resolved the buyer's personal self-interest. For example, if the buyer has issue with the boss always getting on his case for having a lot of issues in manufacturing, and you resolve that, then you did get a win result. But if you resolved maybe the efficiency of his manufacturing, but his boss is still bothering him for other aspects of your product that you failed, for example, it's still hard to maintain, then that is not a win result. So make sure that you got the customer's process correctly, but each and every buyer is actually satisfied, and you have to go through that and you have to do that review. So basically, in summary, know your customer as far as who they are in terms of buying influences, what their interests are. Analyze the situation that you're in, and make sure you achieved a total win. And as I said before, it's a win result. And as I always say, keep on selling. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Jose. If everyone can just spend a second to provide some feedback to Jose.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes, we
Okay.
can.
Thank you. Is it too loud?
It's okay for me. I'm not sure about other people though. Okay. All right, one more second to provide feedback to Jose. And all right. All right. All right, I think we're ready to get started. I would like to introduce Wan Ming, who will be giving a 5 to 7 minute talk. His title is Stand, Stare, Smile, and he'll be evaluated by myself. Please go on ahead, Wan Ming.
Thank you, Ms. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster. With this COVID thing and that we're meeting on Zoom at Toastmasters, I see it as a great opportunity for us to practice this way of working the camera. Working a camera is very important for newscasters. When you look at folks on TV and when they talk about broadcasting, they look at the camera and they project a certain way of conveying information. Same thing with people who do stuff on YouTube. All the YouTubers who were successful are very good at working the camera. So it's great opportunities for us to actually work the camera. So I have 3 suggestions on how to work that camera. Stand, stare, and smile. So stand is actually something that we do at Toastmasters if we were to meet. And most of the time when we do Zoom today, we just sat down. In fact, I sat down this morning. Now I'm standing up. And the way to stand up is you need the camera at eye level. And that is actually the harder thing. I'll talk about that. And then you have to look at the camera, because that is why people see your eyes. Or that's the only way people will see your eye. If you don't look at that camera, people will not see your eye, and they don't perceive you as actually having eye contact. So stare at the camera is very important. And then, of course, in any presence, especially in virtual presence in terms of in front of Zoom, you have to smile. That's the only way people remember you as someone who's friendly. Now, so standing, I talk about, and so the way that I am standing right now is I'm logging in through my cell phone, and then I raise the cell phone to the eye level at some way. So how do you actually make the cell phone stable? One way is you can buy one of these selfie cameras stuff on Amazon with a tripod somehow, and that's like $20+. You can get it. And another way is you can do something like this. You can get a cup, put the cell phone in there, and then you just need a place to sit it on a shelf, maybe in the kitchen or on a bookshelf, and then it'll be stable. You want a stable camera. Otherwise, while you're talking, the camera falls off. It's not that good. So how do you get a stable camera? Try something like this, or get a tripod with a selfie stick or something that holds the camera. Another way is you can connect a USB camera onto your laptop and raise the USB camera up at eye level. I would not recommend raising your laptop at the eye level unless you have something really sturdy to hold on the laptop. Otherwise, you might have a broken laptop. So the best way is, I believe, using a cell phone at eye level, because we all have cell phones, and you just connect the cell phone to the internet, so we don't need to use the cell phone data, and then you look directly at that camera, and then people will see your eyes, and that's very important, and then you smile. So 3 ways to work the Zoom meeting: stand, stare at the camera, and smile. Now, the one thing other folks told me to be careful with Zoom camera is the hands. Yeah, if I put my hand in front, it's much bigger than my head, and so you just have to worry about when you the distances and so on. The last thing I want to say is this whole thing with speaking. I try to schedule myself to speak every 4 weeks for a while, or every month. And nowadays, because not that many people speak, I schedule myself almost every week. And it's actually not that hard to come up with speeches, because I found that the more practice I do, the easier it gets. But also, a lot of the time, you don't have to create your own story. I just read news stories. And whenever I find something interesting, I just essentially retell that story. And because we are here just to practice public speaking, yeah? So you don't have to create your own content to do public speaking. You just copy someone, read something, read a story, but don't just read it, but rather tell it. So some time ago, I told the story of 2 monks. One monk was worried about things and he never started. The other monk just started and started doing things. And my suggestion is just schedule yourself every 4 weeks, every 3 weeks, every 2 weeks, every 1 week, and then just start giving a speech and just tell a story. It doesn't have to be anything special. And then the more you practice, the easier it gets. And again, because we're on Zoom, stand, stare, and smile. Miss Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Huaming.
Oh.
And with that, if everyone could provide some feedback to Huaming for just a moment or two. All right, give a couple more seconds so I can see a bit more eye contact with the cameras to see that people might be done sending their feedback. Okay. All right, and with that, the next part of our meeting is the, let's see, what is, it's our evaluation portion, which is where we get direct feedback on the speeches that we just heard. I will hand off control of our meeting to our general evaluator, who is today Tao. Tao?
Thank you, Ms. Toastmaster. Today I will be the general evaluator. I will first call upon the 3 evaluators that we have and provide and ask them to provide feedback to our speakers. Our first evaluator, which happened just to be myself, so I will just transition into the evaluator role. So I'll be evaluating Gautam's speech. So first of all, I think I want to thank Gautam for giving the speech. Again, it's a very interesting topic and a very timely. It's a very, I guess, topical, very good timing. And you did a great job telling a story, which I think, again, for us from technical background, that's usually something that we don't do very often. And also, again, I also very much appreciate the fact that you picked out the more inspiring part of his life rather than telling us how to trade stocks, for instance. So definitely for more mornings Toastmaster Club, I think that's always appreciated. You did a great job distilling just the most important points without getting through some of the nitty-gritty details. And I think the message is very concise, very simple, very easy to remember. So that's all very much appreciated. A couple of suggestions. The first has to do with maintaining eye contact. As Huaming said, it is very important, even in online speech, to maintain eye contact, because that's basically, when we stare at the screen, the moment someone's eyes move away, we kind of do take notice. I notice you kind of have I have the same bad habit, is that when I think or when I try to remember things, I tend to look up or look somewhere else. Yeah, I am very much aware that that's very distracting, and so do think about how you can perhaps reduce that kind of looking away behavior, because that does distract the audience away. And the second point I want to make is that is also just pay a little more attention to the wording of the speech. Your speech it sounds like an excellent press release from the New York Times, but perhaps it is not as personal, or it does not feel as personal like when it's a conversation, right? So I do think I do encourage you to make the speech more conversational. For instance, as we were going through different parts of his advice and his wisdoms, just provide a few your own thoughts, right? Like, what do you think of it? Like, what does that make you feel? That way, again, it helps the audience feel closer to you as a speaker rather than just to the impersonal, story in abstraction, the abstract story. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I guess the last thing is, this is probably something that take a while, but I do encourage you to, again, experiment with different vocal variety. So for instance, when you were talking about Warren Buffett eat like a first grader, that is an excellent opportunity to be excited, or somewhere to show happiness or show a smile. I think that would definitely help the audience be more engaged with the speech. Overall, good job, and I certainly encourage you to, again, to take up more speech slots in the future. Thank you. Alrighty, so that is our first evaluator. Now I would like to introduce our second evaluator, which I believe is Hannah.
Thank you, Tao, and thank you and good morning once again, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Jose, for really just delivering a speech on technical sales. Normally anything technical based is not my background, but I do have a few friends in technical sales. And I do go to a lot of startup kind of driven events where I do talk to some of these guys and what's going on in their industry, or what kind of objections that they handle, or what kind of clients they're taking out, and how they wow and dazzle other kind of sales prospects. And so I do hear a lot about that. Jose, I think you opened up with a recap, which is great. Some people may have not remembered what you spoke about the last few speeches. So I'm very glad that you opened up with a recap of, hey, these are the last few speeches that I did, and this is my part 4, kind of the ending of this arc. And you also talked about kind of this book and then the selling strategies. You did a great job of the profit and quality example. I felt like that was a really great explanation. Your overall PowerPoint was clean. It wasn't too jumbled. You had bullet points and you had some pictures. And the only thing on the PowerPoint I could say is that it was showing your next slides coming up. And so sometimes that's like a faux pas in terms of PowerPoint presentations, of like not showing people like what you're going to cover, or like not even showing them how many slides. I personally have done workshops where I have to present like 40 to 60 or even 80 slides for a few hours. And then so if people knew that, they'd probably be like, I might kill myself if they knew how many slides were coming up. But it's great that you only had a few and we can only see a few coming up. So definitely don't show them how many slides you're going to go over. Today. But in terms of handling objections, that's one of the things I would have liked to hear you talk a little bit more about. I feel like that's one of the hardest part of sales. Even just interjecting with your own personal, these are some of the hardest objections that I've dealt with, or this is one story or one scenario where I had this really difficult customer, this client, and I was reviewing just how to overcome their objection. But in terms of overall your speech, I felt like you had a great pace. You're very clear on articulation. I could easily follow where your speech was going, and you ended it very well as well. I think the whole structure as well as your speech and the way that you speak about this topic, and then also your knowledge and capability, I think was there. So you had that credibility, you had that trust in terms of what you're speaking about on your subject. The thing that was lost to me was the audience and who the speech was intended to. I first thought it was like maybe you're speaking to your technical sales team and that was the reason for your speech, that you're practicing it. And then I thought, well, maybe you're talking about technical sales and educating us why we would want to learn about technical sales. And if that was the case, then I would like to see more talk about the profitability versus the quality of the product. Of course, if you're talking to your team, you want to drive about, this is our sales, this is how much you can make, because obviously people in technical sales, they make a lot of money. And then why you would want to learn about technical sales. Maybe you can go over the salary ranges of some of these people, which I always find extraordinary. But also even just a shift in our kind of economy where people are now selling more software than like hardware and stuff. But other than that, I think overall great speech. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you, Hannah. Now I think we will introduce our last speaker, which I believe is our Toastmaster, Georgie.
Thank you very much, Hal. Today, Wang gave us a really great speech. Stand, stare, and smile. I thought that was not just a good title, but also you use that repetitive phrase that starts with 3 words that start with S so that we can remember the parts of it. And you used it repeatedly through your talk. I thought you did a really good job with, for example, your gestures, and you brought that in at the end to talk more about how to do gestures properly. I thought that was excellent. You did a good job with the volume and the pace. You spent a great deal of time focused on the environment. I have to say that when I saw you first in that beautiful environment you had created for yourself where everything's framed very perfectly, I thought, wow, this is nice. He put in a lot of effort into this. And obviously that was what the entire talk was about, which was how to give better speeches on Zoom and how to focus on things that you might think of as unimportant when you're giving your speech, but really actually matter quite a bit to the audience, such as how things look and the other parts in which your distracted mind might start focusing on as the person is talking. A couple of things I really thought was great was the phrase you used, worked the camera. Once again, focusing on the aspect that there is a lot more to giving a speech on Zoom than just the speech itself, which with Toastmasters, we very much focus on that. But with this new environment we're in, and I mean environment in multiple phrases of that, there is a lot going on. Let's see. I really can't think of anything I would think that I'd really suggest that you look into improving, with the possible exception of you really spent a lot of time on the three different parts of the title of the speech: stand, stare, smile. Of those three, you spent a lot of time on stand and stare, but I didn't quite feel like you put as much maybe time into the smiling aspect. You talked about that in the past, about really projecting a warm and glow and environment and smiling. You sort of maybe pass over it. You did spend a lot more time talking about how to come up with ideas and tips for giving speeches a lot like you do. And I think that was very handy. All in all, great speech. Looking forward to more things in the future from you. Thanks. Okay.
Thank you, Georgie. I guess now we transition to the table topic master, who is a table topic master? Sorry.
Hey there.
Okay.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. So today our table topic, the topic of the day is speak softly and carry a big stick. Now, this quote, I think it entered our collective consciousness. If you went to school in this country or you've read about American history, I think that based on my reading, this quote actually entered our collective consciousness with a letter that President Roosevelt back in the first decade of the 20th century wrote to a friend, where he was talking about, he referred to a West African proverb about carrying a big stick and speaking softly, and you'll go far. So I did a little bit more research, and apparently either President Roosevelt was mistaken or he had brought it out from a different context, and he kind of mixed it up with some West African, because according to scholars, there has that they've never been able to discover the original source of that proverb. In any case, I'm sure President Roosevelt, when he wrote that letter, got it from somewhere. So my first question is, I know that we've all come from very many different cultures and different parts of the world. What proverb or quotation do you know of that has originated from outside of the United States and has entered your collective consciousness, that you've heard and repeated in your cultural references? And I'd like to ask, for that question, I'd like to ask Tao.
Oh boy, this is a difficult one because it's hard to think of on the spot. I would just tell a story. I guess I kind of thought about it, but it's not used very often. So there's in Chinese fable, there is this there is a famous story of an old man trying to move a mountain. Basically, the story goes that the god, as punishment to something, basically put up a few mountains. And then there's old men in ancient times who really want to move the mountain. So he started digging. And people looked at him as if he's crazy. He's like, are you nuts? Like it's take thousands of years to finish this thing. And he said, I have, yes, I'm not going to finish this in my lifetime, but I have children, and they will have children, and with enough work, we'll make this happen. And again, because of the fable, it always have a good ending. So the ending is that eventually the god gets moved, and they decide to send some help and just magically move the mountain away, something like that. I remember that's really the story. But basically, there's a famous proverb that's like, in Chinese, it's 愚公移山. It's basically this person trying to move the mountain. It's basically basically doing something mission impossible. Now I thought of this because I was actually at the Crazy Horse Memorial the other day in South Dakota. That architect, there's an architect there who started building that memorial in 1940s. Hasn't finished. His whole family is now working on the foundation and still digging on the mountain. Apparently it's going to take another 60 years to finish. So I heard that story. I was like, wow, these people do exist. So it's very it's also that's the only story I can think of right now on the spot that's that entering very collective consciousness. But back to you.
Thank you very much, Tao. From the context of this quote, I think when this quotation was originally made about speaking softly and carrying a big stick, I think the intent of this proverb is really about how important actions are in comparison to words. So my next question is, tell us about a time in your experience or someone who's had this experience where the truth of this proverb of actions speaking louder than words has proved its truth to you. Hannah, would you like to take a crack at that?
Of course, Harun. And I can talk about speaking from my experience in working with a lot of business owners at any level. So regardless of whether they acquired the business or they built the business themselves, I feel like there's a stigma in the industry, and it happens in all industries. I've also met other real estate agents and other financial brokers and things like that, where there's a stigma where you like to play this role. And so we call it, I heard it first in the real estate industry. So people used to say, you like to play real estate agent. Which means that people just like to have the term or use the term or throw it around that I'm an entrepreneur or I own a business and things like that without actually doing the work for it to back it up. So sometimes often people in the role, even when they acquire franchises, sometimes they retire out of their industry. I see a lot of people that get aged out of technology. So they either worked at Cisco or Intel. They worked at these technology companies where they kind of got too old for the industry. And so they had to do something with their life, so they bought a business. And then so that's what they did. Of course, they're very technical trying to run a business. And sometimes they're just like, this is my retirement hobby, but it's my business. And I'm like, okay, but you're not here and your business is not making profits. And so playing the role just means like I have this thing and it's cool, it's kind of like my hobby, but I'm not doing anything with it. And I've met so many people like that. Some of them own multiple gas stations and pharmacies. I've also met a guy that owns a bunch of Mountain Mike pizzeries where he just owns these kind of pizza shops and doesn't really do anything with it. And then so I feel like there's a stigma, but that's my take.
Thank you very much. So how much time do we have? Oh, okay. I think we've got another time for another question. So my next question is that this is that speaking softly and carrying a big stick, about going far. It is for some people might be a motto to live by. My next question is, for Jose, do you have a motto that you live by, a personal mantra that you live by, and has actually worked for you? Or do you know somebody whose personal mantra that they believe in it and they live by it and they have seen a lot of success?
Well, I have a saying from my dad, and it came from a fishing village way out in the islands, and it's very funny because it's a variation of an American saying. The early bird gets the worm, right? But in this fishing village, there was once a fisherman that left the port early, and then he came back with a lot of fish, and he said, well, I got all this fish because I left early. And so from then on, a lot of the fishers, they left early in the morning. And the saying in the Philippines, it was something in the Philippines, but the saying was, I already left the port, and I'm already coming back from my fish, and you're only leaving the port right now. So that was kind of like, but of course in the native language. But that was a one of the sayings that that this fishing village started off, and it became a regular practice. Everybody leaves early, and that's that's one of the sayings my father used to tell me. Basically, just be prepared, right? Leave early and be ahead of everybody else when something has to be done. I'll leave by that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So one of the things, I think one of the big themes is about, taking action, making a decision, and executing. I think that's a theme that's been kind of going on in our throughout this meeting. My next question is that how is the converse of the proverb. Do you know of an incident where speaking loudly, speaking up, or effectively has remedied some negative consequence of some action? And I'm going to throw it up to any volunteers. Gautam, Georgie, you haven't taken a question. So if you would like any volunteers for this one?
Yeah, sure, I'll take it.
Okay.
Okay. This happened in my workplace. When we have a discussion with a problem, or discussion with the people on a certain problem, we will try to bring our emotions to either to empathize with someone or to emphasize the importance of the solution. But what really important at that situation is solution to the problem. People will come up with very excitement. Hey, I found the solution. Let's do it. Okay. I'll try to hold them, like take them step back. Okay. Let's take a slow baby steps. We don't want to fly right now. Yes, we all can fly, but we need to know our destiny. Other time, we need to speak up. Sometimes it might hurt others, provided it's not personally. So anything it's professional, and we ask them to bring or come up with better solution. The other way I would handle is, I'll try to bring the right answer from them, ask a lot of questions. Of course, we need to speak up to ask them to think aloud, because we do not know what they are thinking inside. That's the purpose of the meeting. So I would try to speak up, and maybe I would like emphasize what I'm trying to say. At the same time, I will empathize with their emotions. I give a respect and try to find the solution to the problem, rather than just looking at their some of their personal perspective. No, there is no room for that. Over to Toastmaster. Thank you, Arun.
Thank you. So we are at 8:12 now, and do we have time? Because I've kind of run out of questions here. So Toastmaster, I'd like to turn it over to our Toastmaster.
Thank you, Harun. Thank you. It's a great job with the questions today. Now I would like to turn it over to our general evaluator, Tao.
Thank you, Ms. Toastmaster. Now I'd like to first call upon the functional roles to give their report. I will start with our English grammarian.
Okay, thank you very much, Tao. I think today everyone did a really good job elucidating their points that they wanted to go through. Gautam, I enjoyed that you spoke about birthdays, reflecting on our beginnings. I thought that was really poignant. Let's see. There is a couple of things that I was having a little trouble with. At one point you said on a speech, that was in section 4.4, one body and one mind. On a speech, I think you may have meant with respect to Warren Buffett, in his speeches or in one of his speeches, maybe he talked about this. I wasn't quite sure what you meant by on a speech. I think you're referring to speeches that Warren Buffett given. Also, I think you called him the world's richest person. And he certainly is a very wealthy person, but I think there are actually some people who like own whole countries out there. So they might be slightly richer. I don't know who keeps this list, but anyway. Jose, I was a little confused with the title, Buyer Remorse. I thought maybe there should have been a apostrophe S in there somewhere, or apostrophe or something to indicate that the remorse was associated with buyers, but I wasn't quite sure what was with that. Let's see. You mentioned you have to understand the company, and sometimes you only know that in a shallow way. I thought that was a very descriptive way to say it instead of like something like superficial or something like that. Also, I thought it was interesting that you're talking about selling switches, and you used a lot of terms that I kind of associate with switches, like switches on, and then you close, for example, and then you deliver. So once again, I thought it was interesting how you were using terminology, phrasing that I kind of associate with switches themselves in your speech. I was just wondering if you were aware of that, or if that was just what it worked out. Also, one other thing you said, a win result winning. That's a lot of winning in one phrase. So you might want to figure out another, that's like lots of W's and an R thrown in there, and wow, that's almost a tongue twister. So you might want to look into that. Let's see. Waming, you said with respect to the camera, you might want to sit it. I think you may have meant with respect to inanimate objects, you want to place the camera somewhere. Let's see. And Tao, you mentioned distilling the important parts without the nitty-gritty details. I really like that phrasing. I thought it was very descriptive. Hannah, when you were saying with respect to the feedback you get from the audience, with respect to what them seeing the number of slides you get, the audience thinking to themselves, I might kill myself. I thought that was an interesting way to phrase their feedback. Let's see. Tao, when you were talking in table topics, you mentioned different phrasing that you could use on something. And you actually, I thought it was interesting, you mentioned mission impossible to describe how something was kind of impossible. So in a way, you brought up something associated that came out of Hollywood in order to describe something being difficult. Let's see. Hannah, you said play real estate agent. Thought that was good. Also stigma in the industry as well. And that was about it. And I transition over all these elucidated points to our general evaluator, Tao.
Thank you, Georgie. That was a very comprehensive feedback, and thank you for the elucidation. Now I would like to welcome our accountant, which
I will also be elucidating the ahs and ums of this meeting. And so I will just be giving a range that I counted. Gautam, I didn't count much for you today this morning. Jose, I did count a few, about 2 to 3 in range. I feel like most of your filler words also tend to be in the middle. versus mine tend to be in the beginning. So just to watch out for that. Wai Ming, you just had a few double clutches. I think just some repetitive words that are going on in your speech when you're transitioning from one thought to another thought. And Tao, I did count about 7 to 8, and for myself, I think I'm above the 7 to 10 range. Anybody else, I didn't really count much. I think Harun, you had a couple. I couldn't really identify where it was, but just some repetitive words. So thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Now I would like to ask our timer to provide his report. That'll be 1 minute.
Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, to elucidate how we use the time, I'm going to just tell my timer's report. Gautam, I started a timer late, but I think you spoke for over 5 minutes. And Jose, 6 minutes and 50 seconds. Myself, 5 minutes and 45 seconds in the evaluation. Tao, 3 minutes and 15. Hannah, 3:07. Georgie, 2:36. In the table topics, Tao spoke for 2 minutes. Hannah, 1:35. Jose, 1:24. And Gautam, 2:09. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Wai Ming. Let's see, do we have a word master today?
Word master. I'll be word master.
Oh, Jose.
Yes, thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. The word is elucidate. I counted, almost everybody did. Gautam, I said it, Georgie, and towards the end, we had Tao, Hannah, and Wai Ming. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jose. Now I think it's the time for me to provide my January evaluation of this meeting. First of all, I want so as you know, I attend another club, and in the other club, we always had this trouble of finding speakers. There's usually one prepared speech every week, and it's usually a hassle to get them aligned. So it's always exciting to see plenty of speakers from this club. Today is a particularly challenging day to fill roles, I think, but thanks to Georgie and everyone's volunteering, we end up pulling that off. So definitely thankful, very much appreciate everyone's participation. In terms of actual meeting, I think it flew. The flow was pretty well. The flow was pretty good. We covered 3 speeches. We covered a very lively table topics discussions thanks to Harun. So I think overall the meeting went pretty well. We received a lot of elucidation from Gautam, from Wai Ming, from Jose, a variety of subjects, some technical advice, some life advice, and also just some in general the communication skill and how to work the camera. I think it's very practical advice for all of us, and I like the inspirational message as well that we should all try to practice more and make use of this opportunity. Yeah, that's pretty much about it. I mean, the evaluation was also pretty thorough. I like Hannah's feedback, and I think Georgie also gave a very excellent critique of Wai Ming's presentation today. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think not much to change. So with that, I would just like to transition to our president, or Toastmaster president, right, at this point.
Thank you, Tao, for stepping in and being general evaluator. And thank you, everyone, for making on to another morning meeting. Before we announce the winners, let's go ahead and fill roles real quick. And then a note for next week's Toastmaster. If you do have Zoom and are able to schedule the meeting, I will be out of town next week. So I don't know if somebody can take over that can host the Zoom.
I can host.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also have a joke if you want to hear one real quick.
All right. Oh, there you go. Yeah, we forgot that.
Yes. Okay. So the joke is, my friend asked me why I spoke so softly in the house. I said I was afraid Mark Zuckerberg was listening. He laughed, I laughed, Alexa laughed, Siri laughed.
Georgie, you forgot the FBI agent.
Technology.
That was awesome.
Well, there's one with the NSA as well. So, but technically they're not supposed to be working within the borders of the USA, right? So that must be Russia instead.
Awesome. Thank you, Georgie. And thank you for taking over as next week's Toastmaster. Does anybody want to speak or signed up to speak? Cal?
I can volunteer.
Okay, Haroon, awesome. What about evaluators? Does anybody want to evaluate next week? Oh, wow, we got a few, yay. Wow, okay, Jose, Wai Ming, and then I missed somebody else's hand.
Well, I can also speak as well to give Wang a break.
I can be a backup evaluator.
Okay, got him. What about table topics? Wai Ming? Okay. Awesome, thank you guys. We will fill other roles. All right, so let's give a drum roll, please. Drum roll, drum roll, please. Anticipation for best table topics master this morning. We have Jose. Jose, congratulations. Excellent. And then for best evaluator, please give a drum roll, warm welcome to Tao. So Tao, best evaluator this morning. And for best speaker, it was quite a challenge this morning. It was very competitive, fierce competition this morning. We have Wai Ming. Wai Ming, congratulations. All right. We'll take a photo. Everybody look alive. Look with your eyes, like what Wai Ming said, smile and that. All right, thank you everyone. And I will stay on for a few more minutes afterwards, but we are ending early, which is amazing. And you guys have a good rest of your Wednesday and a good rest of your week. The early bird gets the worm. And then what George said, speak softly, carry a big stick.
Thank you very much.
Let me stop recording here.